Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome to the Networking RX podcast. I'm your host, Frank Agin, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing. A little while ago, a couple weeks ago, I can't keep track. I made a post on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I'm a pretty consistent poster. I have a whole menu of posts that I put out and I recycle, and they just keep going round and round. So at any rate, I had a post that went out, and the title of the post was "Got Lunch," and it simply read, "It is very difficult, if not impossible, to hold ill will towards someone with whom you're sharing a meal. If your relationship with someone is strained, you should invite them to lunch." And so I posted it up on LinkedIn and Facebook, and got a series of I posted them in various groups on my wall and other groups out there. One group I posted it in was a guy who knows a guy, Michael Whitehouse's group, and I had a woman that I didn't know. I know now. I didn't know Dia Irby. And Dia's out in North Carolina, and Dia is going to be interviewed on the Networking RX podcast day after tomorrow. At any rate, we started an exchange, and this kind of kicked off our relationship. But she shared with me that there was actually a study out there. I was so excited to hear this, but there was actually a study out there which, proved that when you share a meal, when you share food, that there's a greater likelihood of trust. And so she pointed it out to me. I went and actually found an excerpt of the study, and it was done at the University of Chicago, which is it's not Harvard, but you know what? It's not Podunk U either. University of Chicago is right up there. It's probably one of the top 5 or 10 business schools, universities in the country. People can argue with me on that. That's just my feeling. It's pretty prestigious. I wouldn't get into the University of Chicago, so in my mind, it's pretty prestigious. And at any rate, neither here nor there. But it was interesting. It says and this is an excerpt I pulled up. I found it online. New research from the University of Chicago suggests that when people eat the same food, they're more likely to cooperate better, resolve conflict faster, and even trust a product testimonial more. And essentially, there were a series of 4 different tests that they did, and I'm going to kind of go through each of these just to kind of share a little bit about this. But the study was called "A Recipe for Friendship: Similar Food Consumption Promotes Trust and Cooperation." And it was published online in the Journal of Consumer Psychology in June of 2016, and then in 2017, it was going to come out in their print publication. And as I indicated, it consisted of 4 smaller studies that were carried out between 2013 and 2016. And there were 2 researchers, Caitlin Woolley, Woolley, and she was working on she was doing her doctoral work. She was a PhD candidate at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. I did some research on her. She has now actually got her PhD. She's an associate professor at Cornell University. Again, these are no slouch schools. And her the co-author of it was Ayelet Fishbach, who was a professor of behavioral sciences and marketing at the Booth School of Business, which is part of the University of Chicago. At any rate, in the first sub-study, or part of the study, these researchers paired 176 University of Chicago students together. I love how they just use students, right? I mean, hey, free food, come on in. And they gave them bowls of candy, and half of all the pairs were told to eat the same one candy that the other half were told to eat. In other words, eat Kit Kats. You're both eating Kit Kats. Um, and the other half were told to eat different candies. Okay, you're eating Kit Kats, you're eating Tootsie Rolls. Participants then played a trust game in which one person was assigned the role of being a fund manager and the others were assigned the role of investors. Um, the investors received $3. I assume it was probably truly $3, three singles. Um, and the reason I assume that is why not make it 300,000 if it's funny money, right? But anyhow, they were told they could invest whatever amount they wanted in with the fund manager, um, who then would double the money and redistribute it as he or she pleased. Well, what they found is that those who ate the same candies, two people eating the same Kit Kats, invested more money than those who ate the different candies. And it was substantial. Those who ate the same candies invested on average $2.40, and those who invested different candies only invested $1.86. So that was the first study, and again they had 4 of these. In the second sub-study, they had 124 students, and they were paired together, assigned the roles of either a union leader or manager, and told to negotiate a bargaining dilemma over wages. For the two teams, for half the teams, the two participants ate the same 3 snacks. And for the other half, they ate 2 different snacks. From what I understand, the snacks in this weren't necessarily, well, they were still candy. The one group, the one snack were what I call sweet snacks, cookies, Kit Kats, and Tootsie Rolls, and the other set of snacks were potato chips, pretzels, and Cheez-Its. That's a favorite of my kids. And so in the one group, it's like, hey, you're all eating sweet snacks. In the other group, you're for half the participants, and again, there are 124 students paired up, so you're looking at 62. You're looking at 62 pairs of people, and then they randomly decide of those 62 who's doing what. Okay, this 31, you're getting the sweet snacks, you're eating the same snacks, and the other 31 you're having different snacks. And then what the researchers did is they told the participants a fake story, that the study was evaluating if eating the same or dissimilar foods as another person affected their taste or enjoyment of the food over time. In other words, they're trying to trick the people. They don't want to tell them, hey, this is what we're testing for, because then that affects the outcome. So anyhow, then they had they began these negotiation rounds, and those who ate the same food came to a resolution in 3.63 strike rounds, which was nearly half the rounds that it took for the people who ate different foods. People who, the pairs that had differing snacks, it took them 7.33 rounds of negotiation. And it doesn't really give me information as to what those rounds looked like or how it looked. The point is that when people eat the same foods, when they're sharing the same food, they're more likely to come to agreement. So that was the second study. The third mini study asked 96 people to eat. I noticed the numbers are going down here. 96 people to eat a piece of a Kit Kat while watching 2 product testimonials. One for a computer software product and one for a stain remover. The person speaking in the video was either eating a Kit Kat, grapes, or no food. And then the researchers then asked the participants to rate their level of trust in the testimonial information on a scale of 1 to 6, with 0 not being trusting at all and 6 being very trusting. And so went through this, and they then asked the people to do an evaluation. Were these people dishonest? Was it a 0 or was it a 6 or where in between? At any rate, the video featuring a person eating a Kit Kat received an overall trust score of 3.21 compared to 2.79 for the person who was eating grapes. And the person eating no food at all was 2.28. Again, something's happening when these people are eating the same foods or they see somebody eating the same food. There's sort of a common bond there. In the fourth study, which was done online, the only one that was part of this was done online, the rest were done on the University of Chicago campus, researchers set out to test if the same trust levels could be duplicated in a study looking at clothing. Essentially, what they were doing is they asked a random sampling of 161 Americans to evaluate photos of people who were eating the same food, eating different foods, or wearing the same color shirt and different color shirts. And what they did was they would show people pictures, and they would ask, do you think these people trust each other? And what they found was that when people were eating the same food, they just presumed that they had a higher level of trust than when people were eating different foods. And what they found was that the clothes, the difference in the shirts didn't really matter. People wearing the same shirts didn't mean they didn't increase trust level. If they were different shirts, didn't really do anything. So it was really something to do with the fact that they were eating food, eating the same food. And there's a quote in the article that I got from Laura Kavanaugh. She's a professor of behavioral sciences at Seneca College, and she wasn't involved in the study, but she kind of commented on it, and she said that the results make sense from an evolutionary perspective. And she went on. Her quote was, "quote We use a lot of mental shortcuts when deciding who to trust and not to trust," she said. We're using the animal instinct in the back of the mind, and I know that the food is safe. I know that you're safe. And essentially, I've talked about this in earlier episodes. This is known as heuristic processing, and it does take a lot of mental energy. It's a big decision whether to trust somebody. Less so today. It's not a matter of life and death. But back in the day, when you were dealing with people in a community or tribe where, were meeting a total stranger, trust was everything. If you got it wrong, you were done. But it took a lot of energy to trust people, and so we were always looking for these mental shortcuts. Heuristic processing, that's a mental shortcut. And food is one of those things that provides a mental shortcut. And, there's just something subconscious about it that, there's something subconscious about when we're certainly eating the same foods. We're all part of the same tribe. Now, I know you might not be keen on ordering the same thing as your lunch partner when you're out to lunch. I mean, you're out with somebody, you're trying to win trust with them, and they order the quiche. I'm picking on quiche, and you don't want to eat quiche. You hate quiche. I'm not suggesting that you need to just suck it up and eat quiche. I just think the notion there's a real power in the notion of breaking bread with those in your network, taking the time and having a meal. Being at a tailgate party, these sort of social, quasi-social sort of rituals, out having a beer, a cup of coffee, everybody's kind of drinking the same coffee. And there's a real power in it. And let's face it, life's full of disagreements. There's plenty of, difficult conversations that need to be had. And there's always conflicting interests. There's always, competition for time and money, resources, and a simple meal doesn't necessarily make it go away. But what this article, these studies go on to show is that we can create a level of trust or open lines of communication with somebody through the process of having a meal. Doesn't necessarily need to be the same meal. I don't suspect. I suspect if you're sharing a pizza, you're eating the same thing. I think that's great. It's probably why people going out on dates will share a pizza. It's really kind of a sign of trust building sort of a thing. I don't know. I'm just suggesting. But the notion of having a meal really kind of opens the lines of communications, and those lines of communication might be just the inroad you need to establish the relationship to, make it all work. Share a pizza, build a friendship, create trust. And so there's, certainly some, Zoom calls are great. It's always great to be in person. But what this study demonstrates that there's some real power to getting together over a meal with people, even if you're not paying for it. Just getting together and having a shared meal with somebody can be a powerful thing in building relationships.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.